G'day Gear Junkies, Jason here. Every now and then I come across a bargain that's just too good to pass up. About 6 months ago I found the Digitech Hardwired Valve Distortion here for 60 Australian dollars, or 75 with postage. That's about 45 American dollars. But that's still really cheap. So I picked it up and I thought, I wonder how this compares to the BK Butler Tube driver, which is worth about $600 brand new. But before I begin, if you like this kind of content, please help me out by subscribing. Here's my clean sound. I'm playing my Fender Deluxe Stratocaster going into my Marshall DSL-40. I will change to the classic gain channel of that amp as well, and I'll also change to humbuckers at some stage during this video. If you hear any reverb during this demo, it's coming from the hardwired reverb pedal which I have in the effects loop of the amp. So let's check out these two pedals. So I've got the tube driver in the green channel of the JHS switchback, and I have the valve distortion going into the red channel of the JHS switchback. So you'll notice with the valve distortion I have it in crunch mode. So this has two different modes. Crunch mode is more of an overdrive and saturated is more of a distortion. I have the drive all the way down and it sounds like this. So I'm going to turn the drive up to about a quarter. So it's still fairly responsive. If I dig in, you can hear the dirt. So it does add a bit of a mid-focus to my tone. Now let's check out the EQ controls on this. So we've got bass and treble, and I've got them both set in the middle, which is kind of a neutral position. If I wind it down, they cut bass and treble, and if I wind it up, it'll add bass and treble. As you can hear there, just past halfway, it's actually adding quite a lot. So I think I'm going to keep it fairly close to the center. Now let's check out the tube driver. So with the drive all the way down, I get no sound, so I have to turn that drive up. So again, I'll turn it up about a quarter of the way. And that already sounds a bit more compressed and a bit more hairy than the valve distortion. Now the EQ controls on this work differently. They only add bass and treble, they don't take it away. And you don't need a lot of it, a bit like this pedal here, you don't need to add much to get quite a boost in those frequencies. So what I'm going to do now is play a light gain example using both pedals. All right, let's push that drive up to about halfway. Yeah, the tube driver is definitely more compressed than the valve distortion, but I might put that into saturated mode and try the valve distortion again. Yeah, it sounds a bit more like the tube driver, although I think the EQ characteristic is a bit different. I think that the mid-range between these two pedals is fairly different. Yeah, I think sort of around 900 to 1000 hertz, this is a bit angrier in that area. Yeah, the tube driver is a bit smoother. All right, let's crank the gain all the way up now. Yeah, I would say that the valve distortion sounds much more like a distortion. It's got a much more precise sound. So with the drive all the way up on the tube driver, it sounds more like an amplifier that's starting to sag because it's working at its absolute limits. So it's almost becoming like a fuzz. So it loses a lot of definition, yeah, and it sounds more like a fuzz. Now I've switched over to the classic gain channel of the Marshall DSL-40. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to back the gain down to halfway, and I'm going to kick these on and use them as a bit of a solo boost. We'll see how we go. So if you're after that Eric Johnson lead tone, what you do is you crank it all the way up going into an already overdriving amplifier. Now for some humbucker growl. Yeah, I think the valve distortion is a bit tighter, it's a bit bitier than the tube driver. All right, let's check it out as a solo boost. The tube driver here has been around in some form or another for the last 50 odd years. It's been manufactured by a few different companies. It's currently made by BK Butler. It was originally made by Chandler. Now, this particular pedal was used and still is used by some absolute giants of the guitar world. So what I found with the tube driver here is that it's definitely a hard clipping distortion pedal. So even with the gain right down, you can feel that it's very, very compressed when you're playing. You lose a lot of your dynamics, which is a characteristic of a distortion. As you start to crank it up past halfway, it starts to sound like an amplifier that's sagging. So basically what that means is you take an amplifier and you just start to push it to its limits and it becomes like a massive fuzz box. Some people really, really like that sort of sound. Now, I know that Eric Johnson likes that sort of, gets that violin kind of sound from his guitar by just cranking this up, putting it in front of an already overdriving amplifier. It's not particularly good for playing chords. It sounds really fuzzy and really thick, but for single notes, it's really good. You get very consistent dynamics because it's so compressed. With the gain down, it's not particularly responsive because it is a distortion, so it does compress your signal a fair bit. So for me, I think if you're going to use this on its own, I think medium drive with this sounds quite good. Once you crank it up, it really does become more like a fuzz, but you can use that to your advantage as well. It doesn't do a low drive sound particularly well. This pedal has a 12AX7 preamp valve inside. But a couple of the drawbacks is the sheer size of the thing. It's absolutely enormous. And also you have to plug it into the wall. The hardwire valve distortion here, I think, was a bit more flexible than the tube driver. I mean, for starters, you've got the two different gain ranges. So you've got crunch mode, which is more like an overdrive, and you can dial back that gain to get that sort of really responsive, lightly broken sound that you just can't get from the tube driver. And then you can flick it into saturated mode. It sort of scoops out a bit of the mids. You get a bit more singing sustain, but I don't think it had as much gain on tap as the tube driver. I don't think it ever quite gets to that really fuzzy stage like the tube driver where it sounds like that sort of broken down sagging amplifier. The EQ on this was a bit different as well. On the tube driver, you can only boost frequencies, you can't cut them. On this one, you can cut or boost, which I think that's pretty handy. Now, truth be told, I'm not sure if there's actually a valve inside this pedal. I tried looking that up online and I couldn't find any information. Now, I was going to pull this thing apart and look for myself, but the problem is that instead of screws, it's got some really oddly shaped Allen key, which I just don't have one, so I couldn't open it up. So I don't actually know if there's a valve inside. If you know the answer to that, please let me know in the comments. So I really like both these pedals. I'd have to say though that the valve distortion here really impressed me given how much I paid for it and the amount I was able to get out of it. So if you can find one of these secondhand, definitely give them a look. As always, I'd love to know what you guys think. If you thought one was better than the other, please let me know. If you own one of these pedals, let me know how you use it. I'd love to know. So if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. You can support this channel by going to the Middle Aged Gear Junkie store and buying some merchandise. And you can also join the Middle Aged Gear Junkie Facebook page. Other than that, my name is Jason. Have a great day. See you later.